smoke is getting pulled through, eh?
Emergency procedures. What is the maximum glide distance configuration? "90 knots indicated airspeed with a rotor RPM of 90%. What is the minimum rate of descent configuration? Airspeed 55 knots, rotor RPM 90%. Caution: increase rotor RPM to 97% minimum when auto-rotating below 500 feet above ground. What is the air restart procedure? Mixture off, throttle closed, starter engage, mixture move slowly to rich well cranking. Not recommended below 2,000 feet. Do not attempt air restart if engine malfunction is suspected or before a safe auto rotation is established. What is the procedure for an emergency water landing with power off? Follow the same procedures as for power failure over land until contacting water. If time permits, unlatch doors prior to water contact. Apply lateral cyclic when aircraft contacts water to stop the rotors. And release seatbelt and quickly clear the aircraft when the rotors stop. What is the emergency water landing with power on procedure? Descend to hover above the water, unlatch the doors, passengers exit the aircraft. Fly to a safe distance from the passengers to avoid a possible injury by rotors. Switch battery and alternator off. Roll throttle into the over-travel spring and keep the aircraft level and apply full collective as the aircraft contacts the water. Apply lateral cyclic to stop the rotors. Release the seatbelt and quickly clear the aircraft when the rotors stop. What is the procedure for loss of tail rotor thrust in forward flight? It's usually indicated by a right yaw, which cannot be corrected by applying left pedal. Immediately enter auto rotation. Maintain at least 70 knots if practical. Select a landing site. Roll throttle off into over travel spring and perform auto rotation landing. Note: when a suitable landing site is not available, the vertical stabilizers may permit limited controlled flight at low power settings and airspeeds above 70 knots. However, prior to reducing airspeed, enter full auto rotation. What is the correct procedure for loss of tail rotor thrust in a hover? Immediately roll throttle off into over travel spring and allow the aircraft to settle. Raise the collective just before touchdown to cushion the landing. What should the pilot do in the event of a headset audio failure? If headset audio fails, land as soon as practical. Caution: some aircraft provide low RPM horn through the audio system, so the pilot will not hear the horn if the headset has failed. What is the emergency procedure for an engine fire during start on ground? Continue cranking and attempt to start, which would suck flames and excess fuel into the engine. If the engine starts, run at 60 to 70% RPM for a short time. Turn the fuel mixture off. Turn the fuel valve off. Turn the battery switch off. If time permits, apply rotor brake to stop the rotors and to exit the helicopter. What is the procedure for engine fire in flight? Enter auto rotation. Turn the cabin heat off and open the cabin vents. If the engine is running, perform a normal landing, then fuel mixture off and fuel valve off. If the engine stops running, fuel valve off and complete auto rotation landing. Turn the battery switch off, and if time permits, apply rotor brake to stop the rotors, then exit the helicopter. What should be done during an electrical fire in flight? Turn the battery and alternator switches off, open the cabin vents, land immediately, turn the fuel mixture off and the fuel valve off. If time permits, apply rotor brake to stop rotors and exit the helicopter. Note that the low RPM warning system and governor are inoperable with the battery and alternator switch turned off. What is the emergency procedure for a tachometer failure? If a rotor or engine tach malfunctions in flight, use the remaining tach to monitor the RPM. If it's not clear which tach is malfunctioning or if both tachs malfunction, allow the governor to control the RPM and land as soon as practical. Take note that each tach, the governor, and the low RPM horn are on separate power circuits. A special circuit allows for the battery to supply power to the tachs with the battery and alternator switches both off. What is the emergency procedure for hydraulic system failure? Hydraulic switch, verify that it hasn't been turned off and is still on. If hydraulics are not restored, turn the hydraulic switch off. Adjust airspeed and flight condition as desired for comfortable control, then land as soon as practical. Hydraulic system failure is indicated by heavy or stiff cyclic and collective controls. Loss of hydraulic fluid may cause intermittent and or vibrating feedback in the controls. Control will be normal except for the increase in stick forces. What should be done in the event of governor failure? Grip the throttle firmly to override the governor, then switch the governor off. Complete the flight using manual throttle control. What should be done in the event of oil light illumination? Check the engine tach for power loss. Check the oil pressure gauge, and if loss is confirmed, land immediately. Continued operation without oil pressure will cause serious engine damage and engine failure may occur. In the case of engine fire, main rotor temperature, main rotor chip, or tail rotor chip, what should be done? If the light is accompanied by any indication of a problem such as noise, vibration, or temperature rise, land immediately. If there is no other indication of a problem, land as soon as practical. What does a low fuel light indicate? Three gallons of usable fuel are remaining. The engine will run out of fuel after then minutes at cruise power. Do not use that warning light as an indication of fuel quantity. What does an aux fuel light indicate? It indicates low auxiliary fuel pump pressure. If no other indication of a problem, land as soon as practical. But if the light is accompanied by erratic engine operation, land immediately. What does a fuel filter light indicate? Fuel filter lights indicate fuel strainer contamination. If there's no other indication of a problem, land as soon as practical. But if it's accompanied by an auxiliary fuel pump warning light or erratic engine operation, land immediately. What does a clutch light illumination mean? It indicates that the clutch actuator circuit is on, either engaging or disengaging. When switch is in the engaged position, the light stays on until belts are properly tensioned. Never take off before the light goes out. The clutch light may come on momentarily during run-ups or during flight to retension belts as they warm up, and they stretch slightly. This is normal, but if, however, the light flickers or comes on in flight and does not go out within 10 seconds, pull the clutch circuit breaker and land as soon as practical. Reduce the power and land immediately if there are other indications of drive system failure, and also be prepared to enter an auto rotation. What does the alt light indicate? The alt light indicates low voltage and possible alternator failure. Turn off non-essential electrical equipment and switch the alternator off, then back on after 1 second to reset the alternator control unit. If the light stays on, land as soon as practical, because continued flight without functioning alternators can result in the loss of power to tachometers, producing a hazardous flight condition. Starter on light indicates what? The starter light indicates the motor is engaged. If the light does not go out when the starter button is released, immediately pull off mixture and turn the battery switch off. Have the starter motor serviced. What does the low RPM light indicate? It indicates the rotor speed is below 97% RPM, and to restore RPM, immediately lower the collective, roll the throttle on, and in forward flight, apply aft cyclic to load the disc. Light is disabled when collective is full down. What does the gov off light indicate? It indicates the engine RPM governor is switched off. What does the carbon monoxide light indicate? It indicates elevated levels of carbon monoxide in the cabin, so shut off the heater, open the nose and door vents. If you're hovering, land or transition into forward flight. If symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, like a headache, drowsiness, or dizziness occur, land immediately. What does the brake light indicate? Brake light indicates the rotor brake is engaged. Release immediately in flight or before starting the engine.